Hi, this is Julie with Beadaholique, and today I want to show you how to add a large hole Pandora style bead to Beaded Kumihimo. So if you're familiar with Kumihimo, you'll know that a lot of times you can just slide a bead over the braid, which is great if your bead has a large enough hole to slide over the braid. But if your braid is thicker than the size of the inner diameter of your hole, or if you have beaded kumihimo, you're not able to just slide it over the braid. So in that case, you need to find a way in which you can get the bead into the braid work itself, and that's what I'm going to show you how to do right now. So here's an example where I made a necklace with a large hole bead between two segments of beaded kumihimo. So what I've got going here is I have a segment of beaded kumihimo. If you're not familiar with how to do that, please check out our video, How to Braid Beaded Kumihimo, and it'll show you how to start this braid and actually how to do the bead work as well. But right now, I want to show you how to add the large hole bead. All right, so I've got my braiding disc. This is where I left off. I've got 3 strands up top. I'm going to bring one down to the bottom. I'm going to do just a little bit of beading here so you can see what's going on, so you get the rhythm of it. Like I mentioned, check out our Beaded Kumihimo video to see exactly how to do this step by step. If you're familiar with that though, it's going to make sense what I'm doing. I did a left one up, I'm scooting down my bead on my right one, and it's going down to my left. I want to do a little bit of braiding without any beads. So rotate, left one up to the left, right one down to the right, rotate, left one up to the left, right strand down to the right, quarter turn, rotate, left up, right down, rotate, left up, right down, rotate. And I'm going to continue in this fashion until I have about 1/4 of an inch of non-beaded kumihimo braided. Flip it over, that looks good. I've got about 1/4 of an inch there. So I'm just going to take a spare piece of cord, thread, whatever you have around the house, and I have about 1 foot here. I'm going to take the end of it and I'm going to pass it under all of my strands. There we go. I'm going to pull it. And I want to get it so it's up towards the top. You might be able to see it better right here. So I don't want to be pulling it right down here by the beadwork. I want it as close to the top as possible. So top meaning where my strands are along the disc. And I am going to tie a simple overhand knot, pull tight, and then I'm just tying a bow. That's going to keep my braiding from unraveling when I pull these off. So now what I want to do is I want to take my bobbins off. And when you are doing this with beaded kumihimo, you only want to load your bobbins with enough beads for the point that you're going to end up needing to stop and add the large hole bead. So you're not going to want to put 100 beads on here if, say, you only want 10 or 20 on that segment before the bead, before the Pandora style bead. Once all the bobbins are off, you have your loose strings, go ahead and pull them together so that their ends meet. And you'll notice I haven't taken this off of my kumihimo disc yet because that's keeping my braiding and my beadwork in place. Once all your strands are lined up, bundle them together. Take a piece of tape, place it over the strands, and if you can, try to make a little pointed tip. You're basically making a tape needle. You're going to use this to thread through your large hole bead. And let that come to a point. Take your bead, go ahead and push the tape through it, and pull. And now you've just very easily passed 8 cords through the large hole bead at once. So now at this point, go ahead, pop off your cords. And this was easy because I knew what my pattern was. I just had 2 purples, 2 purples, 2 pinks, and 2 pinks. But if you started with a really unique pattern or all different colors, make a note to begin with of where your colors were on your board originally, and we're going to repeat that sequence when we go back and put all of our strands back along the Kumihimo disc. So I'm just sliding my bead down, and when I get towards that little bow that I made, I'm just going to pull it all out. There we go. And slide my bead over that non-beaded Kumihimo braid. Now, if your braid was too thick for the bead to slide over, don't worry about it. You don't actually then have to do that extra little bit of non-beaded braiding. You can just go ahead and tie a bow around the actual loose strands, just like so. And then you'll just pull the bead down over them as well, and it's going to hold them in place. All right, so now what we want to do is we want to go ahead, reposition our Kumihimo disc. First, though, we're going to need to remove the tape. I tend to not want to cut the actual strands themselves. I just want to cut the tape off just because I don't want to lose any length, especially if you're doing this where you're going to be adding a lot of large hole beads because you don't want to lose too much of your length. Okay. Yeah, so I'm just going to line these back up, holding my bead in the middle. So just pretend that your bead is your original knot. It's about where you want it. So I am back to my starting point. So this is where I started when I first began and came off of the knot. So do remember, if you do have a unique pattern going, you're not just doing something simple like this with the 2 colors, that you do make a little diagram before you start of where your cords are positioned along the discs and what numbers they coordinate to, so you can put them back in that original starting position. All right, so I'm going to rewind my bobbins. Now, 2 of my cords had beads on them to do my beaded Kumihimo. A quick tip for getting beads onto Satin Rattail, this is 1 millimeter, and I'm going to be using 6/0 beads. Well, if you try to just thread them on to the cord, you've probably experienced this. It's rather hard. They fray. You don't get a good tip to it, and if you were to try to put a needle, even a large eye needle on these, it's going to be too thick to go through that hole on these size 6/0 beads. So what you want to do is you want to create a little bit of a glue needle, and all you need to do that, take a little bit of glue, I'm using crafter's pick, put it over the tip of the Satin Rattail and just squish it together. You're just stiffening that up, and then you're going to let that dry, and when it comes time to put your beads on, it's going to be a lot easier. So I've already done that on the ends that I'm going to add beads to. You can see it's got a little bit of glue on it. So it's going to make it a lot easier to just, sometimes if you twist a little bit, get that Satin Rattail to go through it. And I actually like to have a pair of chain nose pliers on hand to just pull that all the way through. So you're going to load up as many beads as you want. For this demo, I'm going to load 10 beads on 2 different strands. Just to the point of adding my last bead. And what you can do that sometimes makes it a little bit easier to get the rat tail through the beads is cut your tip at an angle, so right through the glue needle that you created. But just so you have a little bit more of a tip there, that way when you push it through the bead, you have a little bit more area to grab onto. So I'm going to scoot my beads up towards my Kumihimo disc, finish winding my bobbin, And now what you'll want to do is after you've added a large hole bead, you want to do a little bit of just normal Kumihimo braiding, so not with the beads. So the left one goes up to the left side of the top two, the right one comes down to the right. You're very familiar with this if you're used to Kumihimo. If not, check out one of our videos which will show you how to do Kumihimo, beaded and just regular braided. So I'm going to do this for a couple passes until I get about a 1/16 of an inch away from the edge of my bead, so then I can comfortably have space to continue with my beaded Kumihimo braiding. That there, if you can see it, might be easier from this angle. Not quite an 1/8 of an inch, but almost. So I'm going to add my first bead. Same way as normal, nothing has changed, except for I now have that large hole bead worked into my braid. And I'm going to continue braiding, adding beads as I go, if you are doing a beaded Kumihimo project. If not, you'll just continue your normal braiding for as long as you want until you want to either add another large hole bead or finish off your project. I've added more beads, and now I'm going to pop this off so you can see what it looks like. I tied another little bow around my cords so that they don't unravel on me. Just going to take off the weight, pull this through, and you can see what we've got. So we've got a large hole bead, Pandora style bead, between some beaded Kumihimo, and you can see since we did go ahead and we braided some extra without beads, looks nice and finished on both sides of the bead, and it just will stay put right like that. And that is how you add a large hole Pandora style bead to beaded Kumihimo or a large braid Kumihimo.